Bingo. Revenue is just a pissing contest. Do you agree that revenue is just a pissing contest?
I have some really good friends that have some very high revenue in this industry that I love with all my heart. I go on trips with them to, I go to the football, baseball. I spend some time with some guys that have some pretty big companies in there. We've become close friends. So revenue isn't to me is a number. Um, who you are as a person is going to show pretty quickly in this
Mhm.
industry. Um, but when I have a problem, if I have an issue, I'll probably reach out to the guy that's running a pretty big revenue and say, "Hey, have you ever had this happen? What do you do in this situation? Any suggestions?"
Love it.
You got to be willing to know that, and then I think that's in our industry. You got to let go. If you're having a problem, call somebody before you file bankruptcy. You were talking about that, and
Mhm.
I think being teachable, and I talk about this a lot. I didn't even bring it up here, but the biggest problem I see is people that are successful and are unteachable. I see people sometimes in our industry, and I used to happen to me. So I'm at fault where I got to be willing to go to a conference and keep an open mind. If, if every day I'm a teacher, then I'm not learning. I got to be able to, and it doesn't matter what revenue you are. A guy running $1 million company, and it will remind me of something I used to do, and I'll go, that's good customer service.
Love it. My answer to Nate is this. I see a little tension between guys who doing high volume and guys who do little volume but never have done high volume. So there's guys in the middle, guys like Eric Rena who have a capacity to build $20 million company but choose to stay 5 6, by choice. But there are also a lot of guys who never have done past 2 or 3 but hate. I don't want to say hating, but don't understand people who do 10. Definitely there is a place for peace and contest among those who just only all I hate it too when they only talk about money, like top revenue, sales, belittling other little guys like, oh, who are you? I'm doing 50 million, you're doing 3. That's not acceptable. But also i I think a lot of smaller guys have to learn how to get their numbers up. I think smaller guys are having every excuse in the book why they're better than bigger companies, why they're not growing, and you're not better. Like, listen, if you've never tried to go after 5, 10 million, if you've never have a big team, don't hate on big teams because there's a lot of guys who are so small and they're like, oh, we're better than that company because our quality is better. No, no, you're not. You're making the same mistakes. And think about what's better for the customer. $10 million company will more likely eat 2, 3 jobs that they're gonna mess up. $2 million company will file bankruptcy over 3 jobs that went wrong. It can happen. So I think that young guys have to learn from what are those companies are doing to do $10 million. Because if you have a capacity, if you can figure out how to do 10 million, you can actually go back and fine tune your numbers and increase the revenue. You can become more efficient once you know how to make high revenue. But if you've never done, let's say, more than $2 million, you just don't know how to sell the jobs.
Well, and let's talk about that real quick because there's this thing I believe called debt to ratio.
Hmm.
And what I mean by debt to ratio is that if I'm going to run a $5 million company, I'm going to have a certain amount of credit,
Hmm.
certain amount of money to run that, and and the same thing goes for a $10 million company. Those two numbers are entirely different.
Completely.
I'm a big believer in paying off debt. Um, Maybe not Dave Ramsey, but every year we pick out which vehicles we're going to pay off, what loans we're going to pay off. We run a tight ship financially. I do my best because what you have today, if you're running, let's say you're running 30 million, what you have at 30 million in debt, if you're running a retail company or that catches storms and you don't take care of that while things are good, then if things go down, which no matter what you think,
They will.
it can happen. And I think that's the misconception sometimes. I think people don't realize that while things are good, you know, maybe instead of buying the Corvette or the Maserati,
Mhm.
um, now is there a time for, you know, getting yourself something nice? Sure, why not? But take care of the people. It's my responsibility to provide a company that's gonna be there for the people that work for us. And if I'm not paying my bills and taking care of my debt as best as I can, and it's more than just getting paid last, you should sit down at least twice a year. I do at least 2 times a year and sometimes 4 times a year and see what does it cost to open your door every year. So every 6 months, how much does it cost to put the key in and turn it? I don't mean what it costs for your sales and all that. I mean what it costs over. What is your overhead? What is your does it cost you $50,000 a month to open the door? And that'll give you a basis on what revenue you need to generate in a retail or storm company. Because if you're not knowing those numbers, very, very hard to run a company.
I agree.